Welcome to the DOGE Diaries, diving deep into government efficiency.
Hey everyone, glad to be back.
Good to be here. Let's see what craziness the world has for us today.
All right, so we've got a lot to unpack today, especially with all this DOGE stuff hitting the news. I mean, the idea of a Department of Government Efficiency with Elon and Vivek leading the charge, it's something, isn't it?
It definitely is. I mean, a department called DOGE. You can't make this stuff up. Sounds like someone's idea of a meme that went too far. But what concerns me is what that means for actual people. They're talking about $2 trillion in cuts. Where's that going to come from? I just saw the headline that army guy was killed in a Cybertruck explosion. How are we going to fund the things we need with all these wild ideas flying around?
See, this is where I start to worry. You have these two billionaires, one who is used to blowing things up in space, and the other who thinks he can solve all the world's problems on Twitter, now in charge of making the government more efficient. We need steady, incremental changes, not some Wild West tech bro approach. And now we have Cybertrucks blowing up. What was that about?
Okay, let's take a breath. First of all, the Cybertruck thing, while tragic, seems like an isolated incident. We don't know all the details yet, but let's not let that distract us from the big picture here. I see DOGE not as some reckless experiment, but as an opportunity to fundamentally reimagine how government operates. Think about it. They're talking about cutting bloat, getting rid of outdated tech. That's a good thing, right?
Sure, in theory. But bloat to them might be someone's essential social program, I read an article that said if they cut $2 trillion like they're talking about and keep Social Security and defense as is, that would be a 60% cut to other stuff. 60%. How are you going to run a country when everything has been stripped down to a skeleton? That includes things like education, infrastructure projects, even things like NASA and the Department of Justice. Not to mention all the people who will lose their jobs.
Exactly. And they're talking about moving things to the states. That just sounds like they're trying to pass the buck on making hard choices without giving states the resources to manage. Then what do states do? Raise taxes on their residents. What a mess.
But that's the thing, isn't it? Maybe those programs should be run at the state level, closer to the people. Maybe this is a chance to decentralize things and empower local communities. And yes, there will be disruptions, but like Musk has said, that necessarily involves temporary hardship, but will ensure long-term prosperity. We have to have a little faith in the plan. Plus, this isn't just some random idea. Think of the potential to utilize technology to streamline everything. Imagine government forms that don't take hours to complete, or AI systems that can detect and prevent fraud before it even happens. We can cut waste and make things better.
A little faith. We're talking about potentially throwing millions of people into chaos for the sake of long-term prosperity that might not even materialize. And this whole AI thing, it's been said they want to use a risk-based approach. Well, what risks are we talking about? And is that risk determined by the same people trying to cut spending by 60%? I'm not sure I like that. Besides, we have real people with real families who depend on things like food stamps and affordable health care. Are we supposed to just throw those people to the wolves for the sake of some abstract idea of efficiency?
And it's not even like they're really addressing the root of the problem. I saw a piece about how they're not tackling the $1 trillion lost to unpaid taxes every year. That seems like a pretty big waste of government resources they're not trying to cut. And it's all from wealthy individuals and corporations. It's way easier to cut government programs than going after big money and powerful people. And they're actively trying to cut the IRS budget by 18%. It's like they're sabotaging their own cause.
Okay, yes, the tax evasion thing is a real issue, no argument there. But I think that's just one piece of a very complex puzzle. The point is, DOGE is not just about cutting spending. It's about finding smarter ways of doing things. They're talking about overhauling outdated IT systems that cost us billions every year. This isn't just about social programs or cutting those. This is also about government infrastructure, the things that underpin all of those programs. They've already identified that the government spends over $100 billion on IT annually, and that 80% goes to maintaining old, inefficient systems. That's just ridiculous. And this is something that seems to have bipartisan support, which is kind of surprising. It's hard to find anything that Republicans and Democrats can agree on these days.
Okay, I'll give you that. Old government tech is a joke. I mean, I tried to file my taxes online last year, and it was like using a website from the Stone Age. So yeah, fixing that part of things is probably a good idea. But you know what? That sounds like an expense, not a way to save $2 trillion. How does getting new stuff get us to save the money?
Yeah, and how do they even plan to fix it? I saw some recommendations from the IT industry that they need to reform acquisition processes and invest in a tech-savvy workforce. Both of those things cost money. I agree old systems are bad, but where is the proof that this will save money? And even if they do, they're focusing on the low-hanging fruit while ignoring the larger issues. I mean, even that piece said that fixing this would only put a dent in the $2 trillion goals. It's like they are trying to find excuses to not deal with the hard things.
Right, but that's just one aspect of the plan. Think of the long-term savings from increased efficiency. If government agencies can operate more effectively, that will ripple through the entire economy. If they can reduce fraud, streamline processes, and reduce costs, that will free up money for other essential projects. The article said that they need to do intensive audits. Well, that sounds like a good idea. Why wouldn't we want to know where money is going? Think about it. This could be a chance to create more streamlined, modern government that everyone can benefit from. It's more than just a quick fix. It's about fundamentally restructuring how everything works.
Okay, but what about the jobs, though? The articles were saying that Project 2025, the one that so many people in this administration came from, is targeting over 1 million federal jobs. Those are real people who need to feed their families. And sure, efficiency sounds good on paper, but it doesn't do much for someone who is out of work.
And it's not just federal jobs. If they cut programs that support small businesses, local economies will take a hit. We need people working, buying things, and that requires investment. Cutting everything is not an economic strategy. It's a disaster waiting to happen. And then if people lose their jobs, they can't pay taxes. So where is the government going to get money? They could start chasing unpaid taxes, but that would mean investing in the IRS, which they are trying to cut.
Look, nobody wants to see people lose their jobs, but sometimes there's a need for change. It's about finding the most efficient way to do things. If you have a bloated department with 5 people doing the same job that one person could do with the right tools and technology, that's what needs to change. And it's not necessarily about just cutting jobs, it's about retraining and reskilling people for the future. Perhaps the money saved can be reinvested in programs that help people make those transitions. And who knows? Maybe some of those people can get new jobs in the private sector with the new technology that they're developing for the government. This could be creating new industries. Plus, the article also mentioned that defense contracts are over budget by a staggering amount. Maybe some of that savings could go to helping people who lose jobs. I mean, if Elon can help the military, I'm sure he could help the rest of us.
I don't know, I'm just hearing a lot of maybe and could be. What about the people who can't just retrain their way out of poverty? Or the small business owner whose grants get cut? Or the nonprofit that relies on government support? This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It is about real human lives. And I feel like when people talk about the big picture, they forget about the little guy. That small business is the lifeblood of the country. And if you cut off the lifeblood, the rest of the body suffers.
Exactly, and this push to cut everything is coming at the worst time. The article mentions that Trump might be concerned about the national debt and how his tax policies would affect things. Well, duh. Maybe instead of slashing everything to pieces, they should take a look at some of the tax cuts they're planning, or actually try to get those rich guys to pay their fair share of taxes. Why is cutting programs for the poor more important than collecting taxes from the rich?
Okay, I get it. You're both worried about the human cost of these cuts, and that's valid. But I think we're missing the potential here. This isn't just about cutting for the sake of cutting. It's about creating a more efficient, more effective government that can serve people better in the long run. Maybe some things need to be cut. And yes, that's painful. But maybe there are programs that are obsolete or inefficient, and we can find ways to replace those with something better. I think we need to try to see the bigger picture that Musk and Ramaswamy are trying to create. We need to be open to the possibility that they are trying to build a better future for everyone.
A better future. I still feel like that better future is only for the very few, and the rest of us will just be collateral damage on the way. And they keep saying this is about efficiency and not cutting, but all the math and articles point to massive cuts. And they're targeting things that seem to mostly hurt the poor and middle class, like the healthcare premium tax credits and Medicaid, which mainly helps the most vulnerable in our society. They are talking about cutting Medicaid by $600 billion, which largely goes to poor children and families. Where is the efficiency there? Are they planning on just letting people die?
And it feels very short-sighted to say these people can just skill their way out of poverty. Many of them will be stuck in a vicious cycle, and this just moves the problem to states and local governments who will be even less capable of dealing with the impact. This seems like the opposite of making America great. Instead, they are just trying to move the problem somewhere else, where they are not responsible for the outcome. The article even mentions that this shift would come with little or no funding, which means they are passing the problem onto the states to fix without helping them.
Look, I understand the concerns, believe me, I do. But I think we need to be open to new ideas and trust that these guys, Musk and Ramaswamy, have a plan. The plan is that things will be more efficient and streamlined in the long term, so they are making short-term sacrifices to get there. Maybe there are some rough patches, but that doesn't mean we can't learn from it. And who knows, maybe they'll find other ways to cut costs, like addressing those ridiculous defense contract overruns that the article was talking about. They said one contract was over by $183 billion. That's more money than some countries make in a year. If we can cut waste like that, maybe it'll offset the need for more painful cuts to other places. We need to try to have faith in that plan. Maybe it's not just about cutting. Maybe it's about getting smarter on how we are spending, right?
I hope you are right. I truly do. Because right now, I'm just seeing a lot of potential damage with very little evidence of actual benefit for everyday people. And it really makes me nervous when they talk about the long-term prosperity at the cost of short-term pain. I mean, how long will that pain last? And how much damage will be done before we get to the prosperity part?
Yeah, and I agree. This all seems like a gamble with people's lives, and they are making big decisions that will impact generations to come. We need serious people running the government who know the systems, not some wild-eyed tech bros who are just trying to make a point. We already have the best system in the world. We need to improve it, not just slash it to pieces. We should start looking at real ways to improve things, like tax reform, and actually enforcing tax laws instead of cutting spending and hoping for a miracle.
Well, I still think there's potential here. Maybe it's a naive optimism, but I believe in the power of innovation to solve big problems. And I think that Musk and Ramaswamy, despite some of their more eccentric ideas, might just be the ones to shake things up. We can't just keep doing the same things we've always done and expect different results. We need to try something new. And the IT reforms are a good start. And maybe a little bit of hardship is what we need to start fresh and create something better. I'm just trying to look at the glass half full.
I wish I shared your optimism, but I'm afraid the glass might be completely empty by the time they're done with it. I really hope they prove me wrong and that the hardship is not too much for the people who will pay the most. But I also worry that by the time people realize the damage, it'll be too late to do anything about it.
I think we should be working towards small changes that benefit the most people, and this feels like the opposite of that. Let's keep watching to see how this develops because something doesn't feel right to me. And they haven't even addressed why that Cybertruck was blowing up yet.
All right, well, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. We'll see how this all plays out. I guess we'll be back next time to dive even deeper into whatever craziness comes next.
Sounds good. See you all next time. I'm not holding my breath, but we will see what happens.
Until next time then, hopefully it won't be as doom and gloom. Good to be here. Good to chat.